Well. Clemson gets blown out by Louisville in Death Valley tonight, 33-21. We'll get into all of that and more tonight coming up in Clemson Postgame Live. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Really helps us out. We're on the road to 6,000 subscribers. Hit that like button while you're in here. It helps us out on these live videos. And as always, I'm sure there will be a ton of people in here tonight because Clemson did lose, and we always get an influx of people when that happens. So if you're in here and you want to be sure to get your comment and or question responded to during the live show, hit that super chat feature for us. Help support the show in that way, and it'll be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, I'm going to bring on my co-host, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, what's up, man? How you doing tonight? Hope you had a great day of watching college football prior to the 7:30 games. Did not go at all like we talked about. Clemson got absolutely dominated tonight. I mean, that's the only way to say it. Pure domination by Louisville. Hats off to them. Congratulations to Louisville and their fans. Great win for them in the Valley. First time they ever beat the Tigers. Not only did they beat them in the Valley in a night game. So shout out to Louisville and congratulations to that team and their fans.
Yeah, man. Y'all gonna have to excuse me for my voice. I've gotten all my frustration and anger probably out during the game, so now my voice is a little shot. So we're gonna power through this one. But at this point, like we've had some experience with losses like this. In our time doing this show. But it hasn't quite felt like this one had. This one did. There's so much about this game that didn't go right that like it feels pointless to even like go into detail and talk about different points in the game, because just flat out every aspect of this game was awful. Just awful. So like I don't want to waste too much time and dive into the stats, because really none of that matters. We saw with our own eyes what this game was, and what it wasn't, and what it could have been, and what it shouldn't have been. So I think like we'd be better served if we just talk about like kind of like the overarching takeaways from this game and what this means for this team, this program. Because all of the things that we had talked about, from week one to now, with the perceived improvement of the offense, the jump that Cade Klubnik had made in his second year in the Garrett Riley system, the improvements that you've made on the coaching staff, all of the things that we had talked about and hyped up to some degree. This game just like spat in the face of all of that. This feels like last year in a lot of ways, particularly offensively. Minus the turnovers. You didn't turn the ball over, great. But you did turn the ball over on down. So it's basically a turnover. So like, I don't know where do you want to start here? Because I'm just at a loss for words. There's so many thoughts going in my head, but like where do we start with this game and what it means as far as the big picture?
Yeah, I mean, big picture, I'm gonna just be honest, and I said it to you backstage before we came on. Clemson absolutely ruined their season tonight. Plain and simple. Coming into this game tonight, Clemson was playing for a potential ACC championship berth and a 12-team playoff berth. Those things are off the table now. Is it possible that Clemson backdoors themselves away into the playoff, or excuse me, the ACC championship game? Absolutely. But that would require other teams to stumble and has nothing to do with Clemson or what they're going to do the rest of this season. To me, I just want to start with the coaching tonight. I feel like Clemson was absolutely blown off the field by Louisville's coaching staff. We looked unprepared. We looked disinterested. We looked like a team who hasn't practiced. We looked like a team who came into the game with no plan. Like we were shocked that they were going to cut block us. And then there was no adjustments from the cut blocks. So we got zero pass rush the entire game. Nobody looked like they were bothered at all that we were getting our butts kicked all game. Nobody looked spirited on the sidelines. There was no emotion. There was no anger. There was no yelling. There was no energy. There was nothing. I mean, it feels like
other than Dabo, like yelling at everybody and like everybody's just kind of.
There was no response from this Clemson team. There was no response. Dabo was quite irritated at different points in times in the game. They showed him. He was yelling. He was trying to get people going. He was yelling at coaches. He was yelling at players. At the end of the day, the entire team looked disinterested. And I know Dabo was spirited at times tonight, but that falls on him. His team came out there not ready to play football tonight. And that falls solely at the feet of one Dabo Swinney. That's your fault. You can't come out there as a fringe top 10 team and get your doors blown off by a Louisville team who's unranked, who's lost to the three best teams they've played by a touchdown, and get your doors blown off by that team. A night game in the Valley, unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. You got outcoached. Wes Goodwin made not one single adjustment tonight on the defense. Louisville did the same thing from the first quarter to the fourth quarter, and our defense had no answers. And, yeah, I know we had guys go out. I know Peter Woods went out. I know DeMonte Capehart went out for a little bit. He did come back in the game. I know Trey Williams went out. I got it. People went out. They got hurt. That's also the deepest position group on our team. So, again, no excuses. And just the lack of adjustments by Goodwin tonight. The play calling on the offensive side of the ball was puzzling to me, specifically early in the game. I mean, those first two drives were like quite possibly the most disgusting drives I've ever watched. Like, what are we doing? Every play, we ran the ball on the first two drives. There were 6 plays, right? We went 3 and out on both of those drives. 6 plays, a total of 3 yards. Every single pass play was behind the line of scrimmage, I think, outside of 1. And they were all tackles for loss.
Yep.
I mean, it's just it's mind-boggling. And then the only run in those first 2 drives were the first play of the game, and it was a Phil Maffa run. The offensive line was piss poor tonight. They got blown off the ball. They got dominated by that Louisville defensive line. I mean, we couldn't even convert on short yardage situations. Every time we tried to convert on short yardage situations, the offensive line's in the backfield. What are you doing? So this was about as poor a performance as could have been trotted out on the field by Clemson tonight. I didn't see it coming, and I mean, it caught me by surprise. I'm not going to lie. I thought this was going to be, possibly a close game for a little while for Clemson, but I thought they would pull away. I thought their offense would eventually pull away in the end, but the offense had no answers. The defense had no answers. The team didn't look interested in even trying to win the game. I mean, even in the second half, when we're like down multiple scores and like we got to get it going, like, and we're driving down the field to go score, right? When we finally put the ball in the end zone for the second time, that drive took. I mean, I'm not looking at the numbers, but that drive took us forever. Like we're sitting there, like we're almost operating as an offense on that drive, like we're winning the game. The play clock is getting down to 5, 4, 3 seconds before we're snapping the ball. Like, we didn't have the luxury of time. I don't understand it. And this trend, this whatever you want to call it, coming out of midseason buys for the Tigers, where we just look unprepared. I don't know what Clemson does in their bye week. I'm not going to pretend like I know the ins and outs of exactly how Clemson operates during a bye week, but it's time to whatever we're doing during the bye week next year, we need to do something completely different because whatever it is, it's not working.
Yep.
That's where I'm at. I'm
It's
completely
three seasons in a row, man. I mean, like you think about 2022, the Notre Dame game, which is it's hilarious. Like this is probably the closest game to that. And it was brought up during the week during interviews, like they were talking, like Walker Parks in his interview talking about how back in 2022 when Clemson was undefeated and it went up to Notre Dame and it was a team that had lost 3 games, including a game to Marshall and a game to Stanford, and you were destroyed in all phases of the game because you came in and felt like you deserved to win or you expected to win, but you didn't play and do the things that you needed to do in order to get that result. That's what this felt like. But the most disappointing thing is that, I mean, you're at home, of course, and it's a night game. The fan base showed out. It was loud. I mean, I got videos from friends that were at the game, and like it was the atmosphere was incredible, and to put up that kind of performance in prime time, you're on ESPN, everybody's watching you. Not like that matters. If we were on the CW, I'd want them to come out and play with their hair on fire. But like, it just magnifies everything that we hoped. This program had gotten out of its system last year, and now you're not completely back to square one, but it almost feels like it. It's really hard to even like just point fingers at one particular thing because it just like I said it was all bad. It was all awful. And so now you're at a point where playoffs, that's a conversation like that's essentially a conversation like you need to focus on winning next week against Virginia Tech because
I don't even want to hear Clemson mention the playoffs. You don't deserve a spot in that 12-team playoff. That team that went out there and played Louisville tonight, you will get your absolute. If you think Louisville beat the crap out of you tonight, just wait till all the rest of them 11 playoff teams, if you sneak your way in there, what they're going to do to you. Because they're going to make you look bad. You really want to go to the 12-team playoffs and go get TCU'd? I don't. I'm not interested in it, man. And if this is the true Clemson team that this team is this year, good. I'm glad they got their doors blown off at home against Louisville because better than stringing us along this whole season thinking they've somehow turned the corner and then go get splattered the first round of the playoffs. Like, I mean, this performance tonight, it's absolutely inexcusable. And it'd be one thing if you just like it was one of them games where nothing was going right. Sometimes, you're turning the ball over, freak things happen. This was not a freak win by Louisville. This was a domination at every single facet of the game. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Their secondary absolutely bottled up every single one of our receivers. When we tried to run the ball, specifically in short yardage situations, their defense absolutely blew our offensive line off of the ball. Cade looked like the return of the happy feet, especially early in the game, in the pocket. He had the return of those happy feet in the pocket, right? The defensive side of the ball. I mean, the running lanes that you gave, the missed tackles, the poor angles, the lack of pass rush at all, the no adjusting from clearly seeing that they're going to cut you on almost every single play. Why did we not adjust? You knew they were going to cut you. There was no adjustment. So, and then the special teams. I mean, holy crap. Like, that ain't been fixed at all. Like,
no.
It's terrible, man. You get 2 block kicks, and I'm not saying Clemson would have won the game if they make any of those field goals. They probably wouldn't have because they played like absolute garbage tonight at every aspect of the game. But it just goes to show that like Louisville absolutely dominated this team, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah,
frankly, it's just unacceptable. Louisville's not that good of a team. And no disrespect to the Louisville fans, I congratulate them. They outplayed Clemson. They outcoached Clemson. They deserve to win the game and all that stuff. But I don't know what that was out there from Clemson tonight. That offense looked absolutely inept, looked terrible, looked like they didn't know what to do. It looked like they didn't know what to call because suddenly we don't know how to beat two high safeties. Apparently, Clemson's offense don't know how to beat two high safeties. I mean, that's what they showed me tonight. They just don't know how to beat it.
And it's weird because it's like it felt like they weren't prepared to see it when it's something that even going back to last year, teams consistently did that to you because they knew that, okay, we're just not going to give up any big plays because eventually they're going to they can't get out of their own way so much that they're going to screw it up eventually, and we just have to let them. The more plays they run, the more likely they're going to give us the football. And now you've seen it this year for a different reason. You haven't turned the ball over, but they're trying to eliminate explosive plays because that's what this offense is, throughout the season has, been priding itself on. And when you saw it from teams like Florida State and Virginia and Wake Forest, you responded well. I mean, and that gets to the point where we have to, you proved everybody that said that, okay, everything about Clemson's offense is due to the defenses they were playing. You've proved all of those people right. And, it's really disappointing, of course, that's the kind of narrative that's going to be pushed now, rightfully so. And you had an opportunity against a team that has, better athletes than Virginia and Wake Forest and Stanford and all the other teams you played other than Georgia. And the second you played, you looked. It wasn't even like there was a noticeable but still competent level of play. But it was a step back. It was complete ineptitude. So now you're at a point where it's like, okay, we've seen this team play two above, one, top 10, top 5 team, and another above average, capable, talented Power 5 team, and you've looked bad, flat out awful, offensively, especially in both of those games, and defensively, you weren't much better. Obviously, in the second half of the Georgia game, we saw how that went. But against Louisville, it was all game. They got whatever they wanted. When it came to running the football, that they only possessed the ball for 22 minutes. They only ran 59 plays, but they were sitting at over 6 yards per play. So they were getting whatever they wanted. You were getting blown off the ball, and you made no adjustment. With the quick game. I don't understand why that was Louisville didn't do anything that you shouldn't have expected them to do on either side of the ball. Offensively, you knew they were going to, try to, get the ball out in space quickly, to their receivers because they weren't going to try and protect for, 3-4 seconds and push the ball down the field. That's not how teams have played you this year. They just okay, if we can get the ball in space and force them to tackle, that's going to, that's our recipe for success. And they did it to perfection. And the times where they did, drop back, try to, take shots, you weren't getting pressure against an offensive line that was beat the hell up. They had guys out. That's what sucks the most is that it's that was supposed to be the matchup of anything in this game that you felt like you would be able to go out and win. And you just didn't. That's pretty bad, man.
You ended up with basically no QB pressure, no sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. That's what you ended up with as a defense. Absolutely absurd. Absolutely absurd. I don't. And then we got a couple super chats here.
Oh yeah. Man, we've been flying through this.
We need
just been ranting. Let's start with Steel Gamble. He dropped a $5 super chat earlier. He says, forget all the comments about Garrett Riley for a moment. Chris Rump is who needs to go. D-line play has been atrocious since he arrived here. I mean, I don't think that – I think that obviously you did not get, anything really from your defensive ends today.
Nope.
I'm not one to and I said this before, like I'm not one to make judgments about position coaches, halfway into a season in their first year, and especially at a position that we knew was a huge question mark heading into the year. I mean, this performance certainly to a degree falls on his shoulders, but he's not the only defensive line coach. Nick Eason's position group did not play well tonight either. So like I'm not there yet. Yeah, Chris Rumpf is a guy that has done it at a high level at multiple spots in the NFL. Like I'm not. He definitely deserves criticism tonight, but as far as talking about making a change there, like you said, forget talking about Garrett Riley. Garrett Riley's been here a season plus. Like I feel like his unit's performance tonight was also extremely unacceptable, and he has less excuses for why they played the way they did. I don't know, but thank you for the $5.
I appreciate the $5, and I hear what he's saying, and I think Chris Rump definitely deserves some blame on what happened tonight. But I mean, my focus is the two coordinators tonight. They shoulder the bulk of this blame.
And the head coach.
There's three people, right? Yeah, absolutely. Three people. The head coach and the offensive and defensive coordinator, because the team wasn't ready to play tonight. And those are the three people whose responsibility it is at the end of the day to get these players ready to play. And they weren't ready to play, and there were no adjustments made throughout the game. And the reason that I'm staring right at Garrett Riley and right at Wes Goodwin tonight is because where were the adjustments tonight? Where were they at? We did the same thing from the first quarter to the fourth quarter and somehow pretending like that was going to work. Completely unacceptable.
And to a degree, like it just, adjustments aside, like guys are not your guys are not winning their one-on-ones. Like you're just right. You weren't winning up. You weren't, like, sometimes football is just down to that. Like you can make all the adjustments you want, but if your guys are still getting beat up, getting beat in their one-on-ones, it doesn't matter what adjustments you make. So like, but that also falls on them. So like, I'm just like, it wasn't even just all about, and I'll definitely have to go back and watch the game.
No, it wasn't all coaching. Look, there was a complete lack of execution tonight. The body language of a lot of the players tonight, I mean, frankly, just looked disinterested at points and times in the game. Like they look like, well, I guess we ain't gonna win this one. All right. Well, hopefully that clock hurry up and expire so we can get out of here. Like that's what it looked like on the sideline a lot tonight. And
absolutely,
again, that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable from the players. It's unacceptable from the coaches. But when you're the head guy, when you're Dabo Swinney, when you're Garrett Riley, when you're Wes Goodwin, you take the brunt of these blames when it happens. Because that wasn't a team out there tonight that was remotely prepared coming into the game. And that's also the problem. They didn't look prepared for what Louisville did tonight at any point in time. So,
and they didn't. It just like I understand. Like teams break tendency, especially. I mean, Louisville was coming in. They're playing Clemson. That's just kind of the reality. Teams will, they spend extra time. They do things differently as far as prep. But you as a staff have to be prepared for that. And they just it especially like once you settled in and once you scored that first touchdown, that should have been the point where you were like, okay, we need the team, we needed some time to settle in and feel our way and how Louisville was playing us. but it never happened. And whether it was the lack of adjustments and the players just flat out not doing their jobs, like that's how you get the result that you got tonight. So, especially when both of those things happen with such regularity, it was awful. Kuzi, what's up, my man? He drops a $5 super chat. He says, still don't understand why the offense was playing so nonchalant, like we weren't down 3 possessions at the beginning of the fourth. Yeah, just another example, just another aspect of that game that was just as poor as you could possibly draw it up. I don't know what, especially when you were having success with tempo, like why it just the offense slowed to a crawl. It just felt like I get that you want to get the right play call in and you want to make sure that, because that you need the score on that drive. But at a certain point, you're running out of time, man.
It looked like you didn't want to
It's not
win.
going to matter whether or not you score. They're fine with letting you score if it takes you 11, 12, 13 plays to do it. And you're chewing up 6-7 minutes of clock. Like Louisville was perfectly fine being up 3 possessions to do that, because you significantly decrease your win probability, by doing that. Even if you actually punch it in, which you didn't. It's especially on that first drive, especially on that drive in the fourth quarter. Was that the second block kick when you were down 26-7? Was that in the fourth or late third? I can't remember.
I think that was late third, heading into the fourth. And then you start the fourth and go on that drive. And even though you punched that in, that took you 6 minutes. And you're huddling up when the clock is running in the fourth quarter, down 3 scores. It just at certain points, it looked like we didn't even want to win the game. Not that Clemson really had a chance, because I don't think they were moving the ball particularly well, even, at the end when they did put up a couple, touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Just nothing looked easy tonight. It's
nope.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm completely frustrated with this game and this team right now, and this. I don't know.
Yeah, you get the momentum of, it's like, oh man, the offense is back in Clemson, and you're scoring points again, and we had talked about the deficiencies of this defense throughout the season. So this wasn't a totally surprising performance. And I was funny. I predicted Louisville to score 28 points. Yeah. So I felt like Louisville was going to score in this game.
Yeah, I think I predicted them to score 24.
But I did not project.
It never crossed my mind that Clemson would struggle to score in this game.
Yeah,
that's the one surprising thing. It's not surprising necessarily the success that their offense had against Clemson, because
but that's what I'm saying, is that even though I predicted 28 points, I'm still surprised, because I think the way it looked, I did not expect you to get flat out bullied.
Yeah, well, I didn't expect you to.
That was not on the table. I was like, okay, I think Louisville. I think Tyler Shuck is going to have some success. Those receivers are really good. They're going to create, they'll create a mismatch or a one-on-one and get the ball down the field. Especially since I knew it's like, okay, well, our pass rush has not been fantastic this year. I was like, okay, they'll have opportunities to take some shots and maybe and they'll get some big plays and I think but I did not expect you to get flat out bullied in the run game and then just get quick game to death up and down the field basically the entire game. That was not the game script I had in mind. I thought it was okay, you'll give up some explosives.
Yeah, I didn't think
from a down basis you would win the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I didn't think you get manhandled along the line of scrimmage. That's probably the biggest surprise of the game. But Louisville scoring points, not surprising. To your point, how they did it, yeah, maybe a little bit. But our offense not being able to do anything, That's surprising. I didn't see that coming. I thought our offense was going to put up, mid-30s, 40s in points tonight, and we couldn't move the ball. We didn't have an answer.
Nope.
Suddenly,
Until Louisville was perfectly fine, just sitting in base defense and, letting us just work our way down the field.
Yeah, but that was more Louisville's defense changing, not our
Right.
offense suddenly having success.
That's what I'm saying.
We were having the success that they were allowing us to have, which is even more embarrassing when you think about it. But I mean,
and even then it was a struggle. Like
even then it didn't look easy. They were giving it to you, and it didn't even look easy. But
you had the one fourth down that you might not have actually got, but they called it first down on the field, and they couldn't overturn it. Like,
yeah, they gave you a gift there. That probably wasn't a first down.
Yeah, every single yard was like pulling teeth, and again, that's how it felt last year. That's how it's felt in here the past 3-4 seasons now.
Yep.
You reverted back to everything that was wrong and bad about last season, minus the turnovers.
Yeah, minus the turnovers. But you had to go for it 6 times on fourth down. So that should tell you everything you need to know.
I think we ran 100. I believe I had it up. We ran 101 plays for 450 yards.
Nothing to show for it. Congratulations.
Well, I mean, I would hope if any team runs 100 yards in a game and doesn't get to 400 yards of offense, like that's a problem. So like, even though like the raw stat line of 450 yards will be like, oh, that looks pretty good. A lot of it was when Louisville was up 3 possessions, and 2 we had to run a million plays to actually get to that point because
a lot of it was.
I mean, that's why the yards per play exists. That's why we care about that stat. And 4.5 or whatever it is not good. It's not good at all.
No.
All right, we got a couple more super chats. Hip Elf, thank you for the $5. He says, "Don't understand how we have more talent on paper than 2016 and 2018, and this happens. Give me 3-star Austin and Farrell back." I mean, well, Cleveland Farrell was not a 3-star, but like I agree to an extent. I think at this point it's time to throw that the on paper talent, and we've talked about it on the show. Do your eyes tell you that this is a team on par or as talented as 2016 or 2018?
No.
I mean, you've got players that would you've got players here and there that would certainly be
sure.
good on those teams.
Yes, you have your guys, but as a whole, no.
Especially when you get into the depth and the like. No, I do like a lot of the young players on this team. So it's like I don't even think like the fact that this team isn't like 2016 or 2018 Clemson, like that's not the expectation I had coming into the season. But you certainly have more than enough talent that this is a result that shouldn't be, expected or even likely.
Well, and here's one of the things, I've heard people bring up the transfer portal because it's always that easy hot button topic, and I'm not bringing it up for the reasons that a lot of people like to bring it up with Clemson, but I will bring it up for one reason specifically with what we're talking about is the addition of the transfer portal in college football has made it very difficult to maintain quality depth that's ready to play for majority of teams, right? Yep. Because a team like Clemson, we don't lose starters via the transfer portal, right? We've lost maybe a couple. We've talked about those, right? But we do lose a lot of depth pieces when it comes to the transfer portal. And then Clemson typically replaces those with high school players. So you're just getting younger and younger, and your depth is getting younger and younger. And then it's really hard when you see this defense, and we've talked about it a lot this season already, right? When that second, third string defense starts coming in, you're like, wow, that's a pretty big drop off. That's a steep drop off from that first team defense, right? And these are the reasons why. And that's why I think, to your point, talking about that 2016, 2018, the depth there was crazy. Like, you didn't have guys moving around in college football like they are now. You didn't have your depth pieces just walking away every single season. And then you're starting over the very next year trying to create depth with a whole new group of guys, right? It has an effect on a team. It has an effect when you start getting injuries later in the season. It has an effect when you have to rely on more guys to get through, as the season gets longer, as the competition gets steeper and you got to roll more guys in and out. That's a thing that I think is a consequence of the transfer portal, not just plucking, the best players out of it. And, we've talked about that with Clemson, but I think that's an interesting thing to think about as well.
Yeah, and I do want to preface, I don't think Clemson lost this game because the transfer portal, because it's
no.
The depth. This is just kind of an overarching theme of the season, but the depth is, the lack of depth wasn't why you lost tonight, because your starters were getting whooped. You flat out sucked.
Your first team
regardless
is why you lost.
Yeah. So, again, that's always a conversation that comes up when Clemson doesn't play well. It's like, oh, transfer portal. But it's like, we can talk about, Clemson and, what they are and aren't doing enough of in terms of that realm of talent acquisition. But at the end of the day, is like you're not playing. Like we're not talking about how you match up when you go and play Georgia. I mean, you're getting dominated and bullied on the line of scrimmage by Louisville. Like it's not good. It's not good. You out recruit them.
That means you're not even ready
every year.
You're not even ready to even have a conversation about those other teams.
Right.
Believe me, they are far better on the offense or on the lines of scrimmage. No offense to Louisville, but they're far better.
And I said they have a good defensive line. Like I said that in the preview. I was like, I felt like their defensive line was really good. But the secondary had been a consistent issue for them. They did not communicate well. I think the broadcast talked about like how they looked like they simplified things, and I'm sure that definitely helped. But man, it's like I felt good about your ability to get your receivers to get open, and that's one thing we didn't really talk about. Your receivers flat out got punked in the past game too. You weren't getting open, and when you did get open, you had a lot of drops. I mean that when you were what was the score? Was that when you were down 17-7?
Yeah.
And you were down 17-7 and driving down the field. Cade throws a perfect ball down the sideline to TJ Moore. Goes through his hands on third. It was like 3rd and 9. You end up, and that was you end up having that kick blocked. Like that was the point. Maybe that was 23-7. I don't remember what score it was at this point. It all blurred together because every quarter in this game was basically the same thing.
Pretty much.
But like that was just an example. Tight ends didn't have. Jake Brenningstool was a non-factor. There was drops, whiffing on blocks. Just probably his worst game of the season. He didn't give you anything tonight. And I don't want to make this about calling out individual players, but I'm just saying the unit as a whole, the wide receiver unit as a whole, just flat out sucked, today, and that was disappointing with how well they've played, since that Georgia game. And now you're like, okay, well, it's back to square one. It feels like in a way, especially, you thought when you got Brian Wesco back, you thought that was going to be a shot in the arm. It's like, oh man, okay, and just it wasn't wasn't there. And again, I'll have to go, when I go back and rewatch it, how much of it was the play, the play call, like how much of it was Cade. Maybe guys were open. That's the one thing about the broadcast is like you never really get to see the safeties and what they're doing.
You can't really see them. So.
Yeah, and the routes downfield. But you didn't have a lot of success creating, those opportunities. And it's not like you can't do it. Like it's not like a defense plays too high safety and it's like, oh, well, guess there's we can't throw the ball downfield. Like, no, there are weaknesses in cover two. But we didn't do anything to exploit them. And that was the broadcast mentioned it. It's like, you were not working the middle of the field much at all, which was shocking because this team has done really well at working the middle of the field a lot of the season. You haven't seen a whole lot of, just 50, down the sideline 50-50 balls. You've seen guys running routes across the middle of the field, and Cade, the short, the intermediate and deep throws throwing to the middle of the field. None of that tonight. He really didn't attempt many. So I don't know how much of that is Garrett Riley's play call, how much of it was Cade Klubnik, how much of it was the receivers just not getting open. We'll have to see. Probably all of it. It was definitely all of it at different points, but how much of each, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a combination of all of it that is at the root of the explanation of it. But it's just, man, that was tough to watch. Not gonna lie, that was a tough game to watch. Sure. Not something that I anticipated coming into this game. Again, Louisville scoring some points, sure. Getting dominated up front, didn't see that coming. Offense getting dominated for 4 quarters, didn't see that coming. And it's crazy because you've seen this Clemson team, through 7-8 games of the season now, right? And you've seen us have to win a couple different types of ways. So you think that you have enough in your arsenal, you think you got enough in your bag that, okay, Louisville wants to come in at too high safety. Obviously, they don't want anything over the top. You would think Clemson would have more than enough answers for that. But it just didn't seem that way tonight. And, part of that's probably execution. Part of that's probably play calling, all the stuff that you mentioned before. But certainly frustrating to watch.
Yep. One more super chat from Hit Wonder 101. He's thank you for the $5. He says, even though our Tigers were trash tonight, the cut blocking was dirty, in my opinion, from Louisville. Nonetheless, the Tigers were unprepared and played lazy. I mean, that's the reality of football. That I can't. Yeah. It's certainly frustrating to play against, for sure. I mean, I didn't play defensive line, and I didn't play that long when I did. It's part of football. It's not illegal. As long they had a plan to neutralize Clemson's pass rush, and that they felt like that was the way to do it, and that was. If they were successful, they were really successful. And you got to tip. I mean, there are ways to scheme around that and adjust for it, but you have to actually do it. Especially after you've seen it a couple of times. It's okay. Well, all right. This is how they're going to play us. Like you have to be cognizant of that.
Yeah. There's techniques on the defensive line to combat an offensive line cutting every single play.
Yeah.
There's things you can do, and we didn't do it.
I mean, they basically throw themselves out of the play when they do so. But again, that's the thing. Guys just you didn't. It was a lack of adjustment on all fronts. It was, sometimes it's not just a coach making adjustments. Sometimes players have to make side adjustments when they through the natural course of the game. Like you do things. Okay, this guy's blocking me this way. All right. Well, I've been taught to do this. I need to do this. Mm-hmm. It just that was not a part of the game script tonight for whatever reason. So you didn't see a whole lot of guys like adjusting to what they were seeing from that aspect. So I don't know. But yeah, I certainly don't care for it. So like, I don't want to say you're wrong. Like, but it's part of the
No, I
game.
hate cut blocking.
Yeah.
Absolutely hate it.
We've already lost. Peter Woods went out tonight. We've already lost him from a guy cut blocking in the App State game.
We just lost him again to the same type of thing,
Yeah.
cut blocking. Also lost Trey Williams tonight
Yeah.
For the same reason. And then DeMonte Capehart for a little bit. His looked, man, did you see his replay?
It was rough.
I thought it was worse.
Two guys. That was when two guys.
Yeah,
it was two of them at the same
time.
Like
the one guy took him straight on, and then I think it was the center maybe that came over and cut him from the side as well. Which
that's brutal, man.
That's a little questionable to me. Like I don't know about all that, but
when the rules expert guy explained it, he seemed to think it was legal. I don't know. They'll probably.
Well, if that's legal, it shouldn't be legal. You shouldn't be able to cut. You shouldn't be able to cut somebody on the side of the knee. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I agree, but
I don't care what the circumstance is, regardless of the player, the team, or you shouldn't be able to cut somebody on the side of the knee, especially when you're talking about a dude the size of DeMonte Capehart. Like that's how you end somebody's career right there, man. That's just my opinion. Cutting from the front is a little different, right? But from the side, that's not too fun.
But thank you for the super chat, Hit Wonder. Appreciate it. I don't know, like where do we go from here? I mean, we talked about special teams obviously was awful.
Before we dive into that, I'm gonna petition the chat real quick. We got 163 people in here, guys. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Really do appreciate it. I love that you guys are all in here. Unfortunately, it has to be due to a Clemson loss, but I hope you guys will consider sticking around after this Clemson loss. Me and Jordan do an all-in show right here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. where we talk about Clemson football, college football, and all that stuff. And then obviously our post-game live videos, you're tuned into one of those right now. But while you're in here, hit that like button for me. I only got 26 likes and 156 people in here. So help me out. Hit that like button. It's free, and it'll really help us out on the channel. Thank you guys so much. And consider subscribing while you're in here as well. All right, go ahead, Jordan.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, special teams, it continues to be, like we said, one of the keys in the game was special teams don't lose you the game, and they certainly played a part in losing you the game. The blocked field goal thing, I'm so over that. We've, after Florida State, that should have been a point of emphasis. I don't know what it is when we prep, for these teams. Like I'm just not really sure.
Clearly,
we have very obvious weaknesses in our field goal unit.
Multiple teams
we have done nothing to address.
Yeah, multiple teams have been able to exploit it at this point.
Yeah.
So clearly, there's some sort of glaring issue with how we line up, how we block it, whatever the case may be. Clearly, it's a glaring enough issue that multiple other teams, special teams coordinators, are able to not only identify it, but exploit it multiple times, which just goes back to our special teams are just not good, man. They're poor. Our punting has been pretty bad this year. Our kicking tonight and at multiple times this season have been bad.
And that's the thing. Nolan Hooser hasn't been bad. Like he's made the ones that haven't been blocked. Like
right. Yeah, the protection is what I'm talking about.
Right. It's basic football stuff. It's like, you're not supposed to. You're taught in Pee Wee football, or whatever. Like when you don't let the guy get his hands up. Like that's the whole point when you're blocking. Like it's just basic stuff. And it's players that have had these mistakes multiple times this year. Trent Howard, like why are we?
Why is he still there?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's again, you and I have been beating the drum about how Clemson needs to have, especially since now that you have unlimited, coaches.
Yeah, you got unlimited staff. Why do we not have a specific designated special teams coordinator? Where's he at?
We do have an analyst that has the director of special teams title.
Yeah. Whatever that means.
What
you need a?
What are we doing?
Specific...
He can't coach. He can't coach. I mean, he can't coach during the game. So it's like
you need a specific.
So that's the responsibility of Mike Reed. Like he has to go. Like he has to go and like make those adjustments. So it's like, oh man, okay, we had a field goal block. Now we got to make a like.
No. You know what Mike Reed's busy doing? Coaching up the freaking defensive backs. Why the hell is Mike Reed worried about anything the special teams is doing? Why is any other position coach on the team worried about what special teams is doing? This is what I'm talking about. Like the reason I feel like our special teams is so bad is because it's clear it's an afterthought. It's nobody's main job to deal with special teams on Clemson. And it's been like that for far too long. Like you can see it's a glaring issue and you can have as big as a staff as you want. So dang it, man, like hire a special teams coordinator and that should be his only job. You just do special teams, study it, watch film, scheme it up, whatever. Just this whole splitting time with, this coach is doing it this year and this coach is doing it next year and, passing around like it's, the forbidden tasking that nobody wants to do. Clearly not working. Like it's ridiculous.
And also, punting sucked.
Man,
sucked so bad.
We need a new punter. I'm sorry. We need a new punter.
You have to give somebody else a shot. I agree there. Like, and that's what's been so disappointing is that, we've talked about Aiden Swanson, and it's like I didn't think he was an elite punter or anything, but you came into the year, especially with how he played last year. Like, okay, we're gonna at least have like okay, punting at worst, like especially with how good he was towards the back half of last season. But now he is significantly worse than he was last year. He's down three punts inside the 20 all year. 3. I believe last year he finished with I looked up this stat a couple of days ago and I already forgot, but I believe he had close to 20 punts on the whole season last year that were down inside the 20.
Yeah.
He has 3 through 8 games.
Yeah, and I mean he's shanking punts left and right. He's mishitting them. Like, I mean, it's just like, bro, this dude he wouldn't be punting the ball 40 yards if it wasn't for the roll. I mean, I don't get it. Man. You're a D1 punter. Yeah. You just got to be better, man. And we saw him be better last year, so I don't know what the problem is, but he's awful this year, man.
And Jay makes a good point. Yes, Clemson has not punted as much this year, so that does factor into it. But from a percentage standpoint, he dropped from 20% of his punts. I believe it was about 20% of his punts inside the 20 down to 5%. So he's still not nearly at the rate that he was last year. So it's been a stark and significant drop off. And I don't know why. I don't know what it is. He's just flat out not getting. I mean, tonight he was knuckleballing it, like or whatever. It just line drives.
I don't know what he was doing.
Just barely getting any air under it, and not much distance. Like,
thankfully for the block in the back, or we'd have had a punt return.
We would have had a punt return touchdown. Yeah, like I didn't even think about that. Like coverage unit was. Like that was bad. Got saved there. It wasn't even necessary too. Like they had it. Wasn't like that block sprung the touchdown. It was that was a Louisville player being stupid and costing them a touchdown because they, Ja'Cory Brooks was gone. So like, yeah, that could have been shit. The score could have been worse.
Could have been worse.
But yeah, it's not good. And Kuzi with another $5. Thank you. He says, as a former punter, I judge punters weekly. I can say without a doubt, Aiden Swanson is the third worst punter in the nation. He's definitely not up there. I know for a fact that in terms of special teams efficiency, Clemson is bottom 10, not just in the Power 5, but in the country. So certainly punting it plays a huge role in that. And of course, you've had 5 blocked field goals now this year.
Yeah,
I think 4 or 5. And you don't really have much of a return game, punting or kicking, so that doesn't help either. So you are not really good at anything other than your coverage unit has been fine this year. Mostly, yeah. Although, like I said, you should have gave up a punt return touchdown tonight. You got bailed out.
Definitely deserved to give it.
Again, special teams has never been treated as special. I was going to make a joke, but I don't know if it would be appropriate for this show. But like it's certainly not special. So I don't know. I'm tired of not being at least decent at, in terms of special teams at Clemson. Like it's getting old. It's not even just the last few years trend. Like you said, it's been throughout Dabo's tenure. You haven't had great special teams. You've had a couple of years here or there, of course, but
that's always been a weak point on Clemson's team, though. Even the national championship teams, our special teams was
special teams flat out lost you. It cost you a national championship.
It absolutely did. That first one against Bama.
Yeah. So
absolutely was special teams.
You outplayed Bama in 2 phases, but you were so badly outplayed in the 3rd phase that you lost the game. Like we're at that level almost in terms of special teams right now. Yeah. Although tonight all 3 phases sucked. So I guess there's that. All right. I don't know. I feel like I've exhausted all my points. Like at the end of the day, it was this game was a total system failure. So it doesn't feel like it's worth like diving into like all the numbers from tonight in every single situation, because it was just all bad. Shout out, I guess give some, because not every player was bad. So like we can talk about guys that we thought played well. It's not a whole lot of candidates, but I thought Phil Maffa was
that's
good with what he had.
Yeah.
I don't even, he didn't look 100% to me at times. But still finished. Well, he had an 100-yard rushing day, I believe, tonight.
He did. 171 yards, 30 carries, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5.7 yard average. So yeah, shout out Phil Maffa. Played pretty well tonight.
Defensively, not a whole lot of candidates. Thought RJ Mickens again was good, and he seemed like the only one of a couple tonight that actually played with some sort of fire or energy. Mm-hmm. He wasn't perfect, but I don't know. I thought he was funny. I have to go back and watch because maybe he had some plays.
Led the team in tackles, 11 total tackles, 8 solo. So
Yeah, and he had a couple of nice coverage plays. Like he got matched up on Ja'Cory Brooks on that one.
bro, I was like, what in the world is Wade Woodaz doing out there on Ja'Cory? Oh my god!
That was rough.
I saw that play and I was like, what are we doing? Like,
Yeah.
that's how you get beat right there, because Wade Woodaz is not nearly fast or athletic enough to keep up with that guy.
Yeah.
Luckily, he did a pretty good job, but he should not have been that. That should not have happened.
Nope.
You got to do better scheming that up. You can't have a linebacker one-on-one with that guy.
Nope. I don't know. That's not much else. I don't really have many guys on the defensive line that I was happy with the performance. I mean, Peter Woods.
I mean, and I know they got cut a lot, but it just feels like they just laid down and took it.
Yeah.
Like once those offensive linemen launched at them, they just kind of like gave up on the play after that.
But that's just on the stuff like the plays that they were trying to scheme up a quick passing play or like a screen or something like that. You were there's no excuse for the run game. You getting gashed the way you did. I mean, you were consistently getting moved out of your game. DeMonte Capehart multiple times in this game. Really uncharacteristic of him, but he was moved. Trey Williams, Peyton Page had a rough game. Just wasn't good. Just had trouble setting the edge too. That wasn't good.
Setting the edge.
Especially once Peter Woods went out, you had Cade Denoff and Jaheim Lawson come in at times. They did not give you anything.
It is shocking the difference in this front when Peter Woods is not on the field.
Yeah.
And I know Peter Woods is a hell of a football player, and he is a clear integral part of this defense, but there should not be that big of a gap when he leaves the game. Because to your point, setting the edge, the poor angles to tackling, I mean, just not filling the proper gaps. I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot of bad out there tonight. A lot of bad.
Yep.
A lot of poor execution. A lot of bad play calling. I don't know. Louisville just came in with a better plan and executed it at a very high level tonight, and Clemson didn't look ready for it.
Nope.
Which is unacceptable at this point.
And now that we know that this team has that kind of performance in them against like teams that are.
But now you got to be worried about the rest of the season. You still got to go on the road and play Virginia Tech.
Yep.
You still got to go on the road and play Pitt. And I know they got their doors blown off tonight by SMU, but guess what? You got your doors blown off by Louisville. So Clemson.
As far as we're concerned, you're in the same boat.
Yeah, Clemson ain't above, them at all. So, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, you're in the same boat as Pitt. Same thing happened to you tonight. Their score was probably much worse, but does that really matter? And then you see what South Carolina did tonight to Texas A&M.
Yep.
Blanked them in the second half. Absolutely blanked them in the second half and ran away with it. Are you sure you're going to win that game?
Right. Like you think that defense, you think the defense you played tonight was overwhelming and giving you fits?
Are you gonna tell me Louisville's defense is better than South Carolina's defense?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Especially up front.
And if that defense did that to you tonight, I know there's no transitive properties and all that blah 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 in college football, but that poor performance that Clemson put out on the field tonight, now you got to worry about the rest of the year.
Yep.
Because you could definitely lose 3 more games. I don't think you could play bad enough. I don't think you could play bad enough to lose to the Citadel. So you still got at least one win on your schedule. And I'm not, the sky is falling and Clemson's just going to lay down and lose the rest of the games. I don't think they do. But you got to be worried about the rest of the games. There's no easy game left outside of the Citadel. and you can lose every single one of the other three, whether that be Pitt, Virginia Tech, or South Carolina.
And I'll say this, to put things in perspective, I guess I shouldn't be this surprised. It just because before the season I felt like this was a 10-2 football team, so technically that's not out the window. But just the way you started the year, and then how you bounced back from it, and how strongly you bounced back from it. It just felt like, okay, man, the expectation for this team is a little bit higher than maybe we expected. I didn't think, again, I never at any point thought this was like a national championship caliber team. But I was like, man, okay, the playoffs are on the table, ACC championship, you have a real opportunity here, and you to lay an egg like this, it's like, okay, well now I have to reset my expectations again, and realize this team is still deeply, deeply flawed in a lot of ways, and they're capable when they're not on their game to lay a massive egg like what we saw tonight. So, on to Virginia Tech. They lost a heartbreaker this week or today. So, I don't know. Kyron Drones I don't think he played. I think he was hurt, but I expect him to be back because that's just how these things work. So how do you respond from this ultimately? Because tonight was what it was. So it's a cliche, but how does this team bounce back? How do they respond? How do they approach this week at prep? I don't know. You got to do some things differently, man, because that was awful. That was not good.
All you can do is just, to your point, move on to the next game. You don't control your own destiny anymore. If you hope to make it to the ACC championship game, you need help by either SMU or Miami. Probably not going to get that help. So, but you're still playing for a bowl game. You're still playing for pride at this point, to not look like that again this season. But, all the stuff that you had in front of you heading into the Louisville game is gone. And that's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Yep. Do you have any other thoughts? I did want to hit on some of the recruiting happenings.
We're going to get to that right after this.
Let's hit the break.
Yeah, real quick, guys. If you guys have not seen it already, Mark Rogers has written a book called Disputed National Champions. He basically outlines and goes in detail over all of the national champions in the 1990s, the shared national championships, the decisions that were made, some of the controversial things that happened back then in the 1990s, and how it kind of shaped college football and changed college football. So if you're a college football historian and that kind of stuff really interests you, I encourage you to go check out Disputed National Champions, written by Mark Rogers. You can get it over on Amazon. The screen is right there. It's $9.99. They'll ship it right to your house, and it's a great read. Or if you have a Kindle, you can get it for 99 cents on the Kindle. So check that out. Support Mark Rogers. He gives us this platform that we are able to use and to talk about Clemson football. So appreciate that, guys. Go check it out. Disputed National Champions. And one more thing before we transition into our next topic. The Voice of College Football has the Voice of College Football bets. So listen to this message from Mark Rogers, and we'll be right back afterwards.
College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the voice of college football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.
All right, guys, you heard Mark Rogers there. If sports betting is something that you're into, something that you enjoy doing, encourage you to go check it out. Maybe win a little bit of money and have a little fun along the way. And we
hopefully you didn't bet on us tonight.
Yeah, hopefully you didn't bet on Clemson tonight. You probably lost pretty big on that one. Hopefully you didn't bet on Clemson to win or cover the spread or anything like that. If you bet on Louisville, I don't know what that money line was, but I'm pretty sure you probably won a little bit of money on that. So probably if you put some money on South Carolina tonight, probably won a little money there too on the money line. But anyways, got 122 people in here, 47 likes in there. So please go ahead and hit that like button while you're in here. We're going to talk a little recruiting news real quick. All right, Jordan, a few things have happened in the world of Clemson recruiting, and feel like we need a quick update because some things happened between our last show this Wednesday and the game today. So go ahead and get us up to speed on everything happening in Clemson recruiting, specifically in this 2025 class.
Yeah, I'll keep it quick, but I felt like we just did something I wanted to address because we haven't really done a recruiting segment in a while. I was going to drop just an individual video, but my laptop is being weird and doesn't want to cooperate with me when I record these. So until I do that, this will have to do, and we'll just clip it. But I'll start with the good news that you got today. 4-star safety Jordan Young from Monroe, North Carolina, announced his commitment to Clemson. Recruitment that had a lot of ups and downs, since really June. For a long time, felt like a Clemson lean. Took his visit to NC State. They seized momentum, and it seemed like he was trending, to make a public commitment to NC State. Clemson stayed on him, and he delayed his recruitment into the season. You had some other teams get in, Florida State and Michigan specifically made a really strong push towards the end. But Clemson was the mainstay. They had been the consistent, team in his recruitment. And he announced today in a ceremony. It was he faked us out like 8 different times with the hats, but at the end of the day, big addition to the DB class, especially considering the loss that you had yesterday that I'll talk about. But big deal just for optics because this class has certainly taken its hits over the past few months. So he's a guy that projects, he played both ways at Monroe, played a wide receiver and defensive back, but definitely projects as a safety. And I think that's where his skill set will best be utilized. And it's a good addition to the class. And we'll see, obviously in today's recruiting world, we'll see if he, makes it to signing day. But I think for now, you have his commitment. So, and then I'll talk about what the happenings from yesterday. You got another commit and you had a decommitment. I'll start with the decommitment. Actually, no, I'll do it in order chronologically from that day. Started with a surprise commitment from Tampa, Florida offensive line prospect Gavin Blanchard from UCF. A guy that Clemson had a previous relationship to. He had camped multiple times at Clemson. He Clemson liked him a lot. There were certain things that they wanted him to, reach before they extended an offer. He decides to, go a different direction and commit to UCF. And down the road, Clemson, felt like they needed to add another offensive line body to, in addition to the 3 that you already have. And he decided to pull the trigger yesterday. Flipped to Clemson. He projects, I think, to play center. I think that's ultimately where he'll play. But he has a lot of positional versatility. He played at Jesuit High School. If that high school sounds familiar, that's the same school that Wade Andrew Woodaz went to. So Clemson tapping into that Tampa, kind of pipeline that they've had going for a little while now. But yeah, I think he's a guy that will definitely. I think he'll need some time, but he's a guy that I think has a ready-made body, and just I think with coaching, I think he'll eventually become a really nice contributor for you. So nice get. Then the bad news from yesterday. Top 100 defensive back Grayson Littleton announced that he has decommitted from Clemson. Not really much of a way to sugarcoat it. This is a pretty tough one. Guy that I had a lot of high, praise for. One of the better athletes that you had in the class. Extremely, extremely fast. He announced his decommitment from Clemson. Michigan is the team to watch there. They have certainly been throwing around their newly found NIL cachet, and that certainly did play a role in this. It wasn't a surprise to the staff, according to what's been reported. So we'll see what they decide to do and how they choose to pivot, but it's not a great loss for your class. I can't really dress it up any sort of way. That's a big one. And that's another hit that you've taken. That's certainly a large part NIL related. So, and it's not really a reflection of Clemson in terms of the money that they have. It's just a reflection of how Clemson chooses to spend the money that they have. And that's a different conversation, but that's my little recruiting update. Had two pretty good, news. And then of course you had the decommitment. So we'll see how Clemson goes about, moving forward and closing out this class.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good news there, some not so good news, but seems that the 2025 class is kind of chugging right along, and we'll see where it ends up. A lot of moving parts. Still a ton of time before early signing day in December, at least as far as decommitments and stuff like that going. I can't remember this many decommitments in recent history for the Tigers, being so close to.
You had what, five, I think?
5 so far this class, yeah. That's tough. That's not typical of a Clemson recruiting class, but again, times are changing. You got NIL out there. You got a lot of moving pieces and a lot of moving parts, and these are young people that are trying to make the best decision for themselves. And, unfortunately for us, sometimes that means they're not coming to play their football careers at Clemson. So, wish them the best, and we'll move on with what we got and, continue to try to build the class.
Yep.
All right, Jordan. One last thing I want to talk about tonight before we kind of get out of here, and it's the throwing trash on the field. The Clemson fans threw trash on the field tonight. Everybody remembers back to the Georgia-Texas game. Again, that wasn't the first game that's ever happened. You can think back to Tennessee with the mustard bottle thing and that sort of stuff. This has happened in college football before, but at least it became really prevalent, it's happened a couple times since the Georgia-Texas game where Obviously, the Texas fans were displeased and threw trash on the field, threw water bottles on the field, got a call overturned, or at least that's how it appeared, that the fans got the call overturned. Clemson does the same thing tonight. Obviously, there was a call out there that the fans didn't like. I think the right call was made, regardless of whether the right call was made or not. It's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. It's inexcusable for fans to throw trash on the field, man. Like, I hate to see stuff like that, and I get the emotion. I'm a very emotional person when it comes to college football. I get mad about this stuff. Clemson means a lot to me. Probably, get a little too mad in games sometimes. Some of that has calmed down over the years, but I used to be much worse than I am now. But anyways, throwing trash on the field, completely unacceptable, man. It's just like, why? Why do we got to be one of the ones that contribute to this trend that's going on in college football right now, ever since that Georgia Texas game?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it was students and very various less of sound mind fans.
Yeah.
That's just it sucks. But I think that was it was kind of just the buildup of the frustration of that entire night. Not excusing it at all. It's certainly not something that we've come to be used to from Clemson. Especially a fan base that prides itself on being classy and all that stuff. Clemson gentlemen and all that. Yeah, just wasn't a good look for sure. I mean, especially on primetime television. Got it. They got it sorted out pretty quickly. It didn't turn into a massive thing.
Right. Yeah. No, it didn't. It's just disappointing because, yeah, to your point, Clemson does try to pride themselves on, being a classy fan base, not getting into stuff like that. And it's unfortunate that a small portion of them decided to ruin that tonight and throw water bottles on the field. Completely classist move, regardless of the call. And again, it was the right call.
Right.
The call was right. But I just wanted to address that because I thought it was a terrible look for the Clemson fan base. Unfortunately, it happened, and it shouldn't have. So it is what it is. But didn't have any effect on the scoreboard. Didn't have any effect on a call. Clemson still loses 33-21. And our destiny is no longer in our hands. We don't get to play Miami. We don't get to play SMU. So we got to hope that, somebody loses and we can get into the ACC championship game. But doesn't appear with the schedules left that that's going to happen. So at this point, Clemson's playing for a bowl game. And you got to pick yourself up and move on.
Yep.
It was a puzzling game from start to finish. You never really felt like Clemson was going to get it going. They just never showed on the field that they were going to get it going.
There was one point, I think after their first touchdown drive, I was like, I had that feeling in my, okay, it's like, all right, I think they figured it out. They just needed some time to settle in. But then when you saw the continuous lack of ability to, sustain drives and just dropping routine, not making routine throws, dropping routine passes, lack of execution, all the things we've talked about. It was like, okay, I think I don't know the exact point in the game where I was like, okay, it's this team has regressed back to its old self. Probably I think probably one at the beginning of the second half, because I was like, this team has been good about second half adjustments for the most part this year. I was like, yeah. I was having a meltdown on the timeline for those of you that follow me on Twitter, but I was like, okay, we're all good. I've gotten it out of my system. You're down by 10. We could be a lot worse. And this team's done a good job at coming out in second halves and really taking control of the game. I think when Louisville got the ball back and just went right down the field, of course you got bailed out by a drop on 3rd and long that would have been a first down, but you got to stop. I was like, okay, but then when you get the ball back, and I don't even remember. Did you go 3 and out? Or was that when you went down and had the field goal block? I don't remember. But
that was a field goal block, I believe.
All these drives are blending together because they're
all running into each other.
Yeah. And I don't even feel like looking at the stats because the drive chart, because I don't care because there's just not much to glean from it because it was all the same. But you get what I'm saying. I think those two possessions for either team, that was the point. I was like, okay, this game is over. And sucky feeling because you hadn't really felt like that, especially against a team that you feel like you should be. Like Georgia, it was kind of like, okay, is what it is. Like this was a result that was always in the potentially in the cards, but you're disappointed you didn't compete better in that game. But it's Georgia. They have the athletes. They recruit better than you. They have a better roster than you. So I mean, that's just what happens sometimes. But tonight, like you're at home. Louisville, you're coming off a bye week. Louisville has played how many games? 6, 7 games in a row. And you come out and look like that. Like that's
inexcusable,
man.
It's inexcusable. Clemson was not ready to play. They got their butts handed to them. Louisville outcoached them, out-executed them, outplayed them, deserved to win the game. Hats off to them. Hats off to their coaching staff, their fans. Clemson back to the drawing board, man. I don't know what else to say. I think we've kind of recapped all we can recap and given our thoughts. It was just a bad game through and through. It wasn't a fluke win. You got manhandled along the lines of scrimmage. You weren't explosive. They were playing too high safety, and you just ran the same plays over and over again, pretending like they were going to work, and they didn't. The defense got manhandled up front, couldn't tackle, taking bad angles to the ball, not setting the edge, no pressure on the quarterback, no adjustments. Special team was terrible. 2 block kicks, There's no positives out of this game. There's really not. There's zero positive out of this game. It was all bad. At every phase of the game, it was bad. You got beat at every phase of the game. And you shouldn't have. This team's, for the aspirations that Clemson had coming into the game, all of those are gone now because clearly you weren't ready for them. Because if you were, you wouldn't have got beat by this Louisville team. No offense to Louisville.
Yep. All right. Anything parting shots? I don't really have much else.
No, I think that'll do it for the show. Clemson loses again, 21. Clemson 21, Louisville 33. Clemson gets dominated in Death Valley, South Carolina. And now they have no margin for error. So ACC championship is out of the question without losses from other teams. And the college football playoff is obviously out of the question. So, but with all that said, we'll be right back here next Wednesday, or this coming Wednesday, I should say, 8 p.m. To discuss this game again, the game going forward, and anything and everything else that comes up in the news cycle between now and then. So be sure to stop by this coming Wednesday. 8 p.m., me and Jordan will be here for the All-In Show. See 129 of you in here right now. Hit that like button on your way out. Consider subscribing. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Appreciate you coming to hang out with us for this post-game live, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Until then, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.